You are running with the Devils, and Big John, man, that's a rough one to take. This past Saturday night, the Devils get lambasted by the Utah Utes in Salt Lake City, and we'll be talking all about it here on RWD. I'm the RyKno, Ryan Knowles, here as always, Big John Caldwell.
Hey.
John, you take some L's, and then you take some blowout L's, and this was the latter on Saturday night, as on Saturday afternoon, as the Devils were just simply outclassed pretty much by the number 18 ranked Utah Utes.
Two-time champions.
Yes, they are two-time champions for a reason. And even though, we talked about some of their shortcomings with the injuries that they've had and some of the issues that they've had, but even then, they still came in with a chip on their shoulder. We hypothesized this might be a bit of a trap game. It clearly was not. They were fully prepared for this game, and they definitely came out and showed why they're the class of the conference and certainly one of the better teams in the country, as they upend the Devils 55-3, and it was a complete and utter domination by Utah. And we'll get in. We won't spend a lot of time on it, but we will get into it a little bit here. Talk about the effect talk about the effect that a loss like this can have on a program. We'll see what we do about that, and we'll preview the Devils matchup this coming weekend in SoCal, their last matchup in the Pac-12 with UCLA. So we'll get into all of that here on Running with the Devils this week. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Make sure that you hit the like, comment, subscribe button, all that good stuff. We'd love to hear from you. And we'll definitely have we'll try to make this as fun as possible, as much as we hate to see the Devils lose by this much. This was kind of an anomaly a little bit, Big John, because other than the Fresno State game, we haven't really seen ASU get beaten like this. Even with their record, they've usually been in games all the way pretty much up until the fourth quarter in most of their losses. So this was a little unusual that they came out. Granted, there were some circumstances that were going against them even before kickoff, and it was very unfortunate. But that's the way it is. It's just unfortunate that happened. But
you lost your starting left tackle. He decided not to make the trip. He had
transfer. In fact,
he decided not to make the trip, and then later he said he was transferring. He had been his classes. Had been great. His grade. I don't know if fans realize that coaches grade out every offensive lineman for their technique and number of missed plays, missed blocks, etc. And he was dropping precipitously throughout the season, and so Bram Walden had pretty much
his desire, I guess, kind of took a hit at some point.
Yeah. So for kids who don't want to be here, I understand that you don't want them here. So what's nice is we'll talk about his replacement here in a minute. But next year you'll probably see Bram Walden step up and play that left tackle position quite well. He's done an admirable job throughout the season. But then we lost
healthy. Yeah,
right, very health issue. And then we lost our kind of our budding number 2 running back. I thought so. Any sense of a run game was pretty much at one-dimensional at best with Scattaboo. But when you have
we didn't even know DeCarlos Brooks wasn't going to suit up, and that kind of came as a surprise. Isaiah Glass, deciding not making the trip and then ultimately deciding to transfer was a surprise. So we didn't know about any of this going into Saturday, and these are things that were certainly working against ASU even before kickoff. And then you lose Trenton Bourget, the third play into the game. He hasn't really been all that durable, but he's still been effective when he's had time and when he hasn't been hit a lot.
Right.
But against this, we talked about Utah's defense, specifically their pass rush. And when they get after it, they're tough to stop, and that was certainly the case on Saturday.
Yeah, and with really your fourth-string quarterback playing, you had nothing going on third downs, 1 for 16. That was just absolute. It was and the kid was running for his life a lot. It was just, and he's not a kid who can throw on the run. It's pretty obvious. Yeah. So,
No,
uh,
no, and it was hard to watch at times. Certainly, I mean, just look at the stats. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves as far as
yeah,
the other domination. Utah was able to pretty much move the ball at will. I mean, they ran for. I know they ran for over 300 yards,
right.
or 350 yards on the ground. You do that, you're going to win a good number of your games.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, between that, they held 80. ASU just 83 total yards. Their time they had 13 more minutes of time of possession. I mean, you look at the passing numbers there, and really the only bright spot for this game was Elijah Badger's kick return that set up the only points of the game, the Longhetto field goal. So.
And he's actually been really good this year on kick return. I felt it was kind of like he finally sprung a big one, because I thought he was due with the way he had been running it. And credit to the blocking scheme that Coach Regal sort of set up. The lanes were really nicely attended to, and then later in the we had one called back by, what was it? Not Jake. Who ran the one all the way back?
Honestly, I'll be honest. I turned it off in the third quarter.
Oh, so
I just couldn't. I had all the fun I could take,
right,
pretty much at that point. I mean, Stovall
ran one,
a nice one.
He is really, really cagey. He's cagey, fast, and has moves. So look for him in the future. But
and he's also the main punt returner as well.
Correct.
So and then we mentioned, I mean, they only dressed 6 scholarship offensive linemen. So even before kickoff, we kind of knew this was. We don't want to say this was coming, but you could kind of tell things were working against ASU. To begin with, and when you got a team like Utah, who's even with the injuries that they've got, they're still very stacked, very physical. Very just a very imposing team, and they're ranked for a reason, and definitely impose their will.
Well, and they all of, as we talked about last week, all of their goals are still ahead of them. By winning, they still have a chance to go to the championship and to potentially get into the playoffs. So yeah, those kids, they knew what to do at the time that they were when it was time. They did not play down to their level of competition. They played at a championship level, I felt.
That's something that Kyle Whittingham has really coached into them.
Right.
That's why he's one of the longest tenured coaches in major college football, because he can get his team to go out and do something like this against the lesser opponent. So hats off to Utah. You just got to say, good game, congrats, and move on.
And Coach Dillingham is right. They have set the standard. I mean, we can talk about the Oregons and the USCs who have had small, nice runs, but this is the most consistent.
And they're certainly more flashy. They're going to get the clicks and the headlines, certainly more than a team like Utah. I mean, all Utah does is go out and win conference titles. So, absolutely. I think ASU. That's something that ASU is definitely going to want to follow the blueprint for. Absolutely. And sometimes you have to take losses like this, and that kind of takes us into what we learned presented by Valley Athletic Booster Club. Usually in this segment, John and I will present different points on what we observed, what we saw. But in a game like this, where ASU was so completely overwhelmed and dominated, I mean, we kind of posed the question to each other and to you, our viewers: what can you learn from a 55-3 blowout loss? I mean, I guess the first thing and foremost is you don't want to feel this way ever again. That's why you go out there and play as hard as you do, so you don't end up on the wrong side of a 55-3 game. And I think that to me is one of the biggest things. If I'm a player on this team, I'm thinking, hey, I don't want to feel this way again. I don't want to get, just put over a barrel like this ever again. So I'm gonna go out there. I'm gonna work hard. I'm gonna put in my full effort to get better and make sure that I'm not the reason that we're on the wrong side of a loss like this.
Yeah, I think it speaks to the fact that you really do need 4 quality quarterbacks in your quarterback room, and they should be all of the same relative skill set. You don't want to have one who's just a running guy, one who's a pocket guy. They all need, because what it appeared to me was once Trenton went down, the playbook got very narrow in terms of what we could run, and that
Yeah,
that
and
that
at the
that
same
hurts.
time, I think you also want to continue to build up the offensive line room. I
Oh
think
yeah,
that's a
yes,
priority for this team
absolutely.
offseason with all the injuries that they've had to their quarterbacks. If they're
Hmm.
protecting their quarterback, you don't need to worry about who your second through fourth quarterbacks are. If your O linemen are, of the quality to where they're going out there and doing their jobs the best of their ability every single week.
Well, I'll give you a good example. Utah's a good example.
Oh
Their
yeah,
starting quarterback is down there. This the guy, the pig farmer did a really nice job, but he's a system guy, right?
sure,
He's not
right.
getting he's probably not getting drafted. But
No,
that's the
Barnes, no Johnson. I mean, Johnson's a nice athlete, definitely a good
Mhm.
runner. He had a couple
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
really runs against ASU.
I
If he can
agree.
continue to develop as a passer, maybe
Hmm.
he could turn into something. We
Hmm.
don't know. He's younger than Barnes, so that remains to be seen for them. But yeah, I mean, they certainly did have, but they do have all of those. Pretty much all of their quarterbacks are good enough athletes where they can get out and run when they need to. Some of them better than others, certainly, but I think it's a benefit when you have that type of quarterback that's even not necessarily a true dual threat, but still one that's mobile enough to avoid a rush, extend a play, and give you a good chance to just be successful on every play. So
Well, so
and that's neither here or there. I mean, that's Utah's case. I think ASU just they kind of just need to continue to recruit at a high level and
yeah,
try to bring in the best players they possibly can and continue to build those guys up in this system. I
yeah,
think that this is a game that just kind of a even though they were missing some players, they had some things working against them. This is still a good kind of barometer for where the program is at this point. You're clearly not ready for prime time player. You're you're still kind of figuring out who you are and learning an identity as with a first year coach and system. So now you got to try to move on from this and try to rebound and finish out these last three games of the season the best of your ability.
I see it as it is a learning opportunity in terms of checking what you're made out of, and then internally for the staff, they got to be thinking about I know they have a blueprint for what the kind of guys they want to bring in, but clearly you're going to need more linemen, maybe than you counted on at the beginning of the recruiting process.
Yeah,
Um, and I think I think some more dynamic, continue to you can still get good dynamic playmakers on skill players through the portal. I believe that. But it's clear that
and that's where they've gotten a lot of their linemen.
that's
So,
correct. But I think to be effective, you got to have you can have good classes of linemen coming in who will play well together and who can play in
true.
their Coach Baldwin's system. And there's Coach Baldwin's system is pretty sound at this point. I mean, I know losing 55 points sounds like it wasn't sound, but you know we were never our head we were not in that game from an offensive standpoint. We couldn't put up points, so we never had a chance to find out what we really could do last week without having firing on all cylinders on offense.
Yeah. I mean, I hate luster from that Washington State win wore off pretty quick, didn't it?
Yeah, yeah. The bus is dirty all over.
Yeah, it's tough to take a loss like this. I mean, but again, I think the only thing you can do is just you watch the film once and then you kind of put it away and you just don't
You
worry about it until you play Utah again the next year. And
yeah,
a lot of people, including Ricky Boyer, who was a part of that '96 Rose Bowl team, talked about '95 when they went into Lincoln, Nebraska to play the Huskers, and yeah, they got just utterly dominated 77-28. I mean, and there was some talk of Utah kind of running up the score in this game, much like Nebraska did. And
yeah. I
and
saw that, but
does ASU maybe keep this game kind of in the back of their minds until they face Utah again? Because Utah's coming with them to the Big 12 next year. They're gonna see them again. So hopefully this team has progressed enough next year to where they're at least staying competitive with the Utes.
yeah,
In the
I don't think the late score will matter as much as the the overall score, and the fact that this is a team you have to calibrate to. The physicality of this team is what you have to match. That's the key. I mean,
yeah,
they were
that is true.
So we got to get bigger, stronger.
Yeah.
Last year up front.
Just got to continue to build up front, and continue to build the whole team for that matter, and just continue to recruit the way they have. I think ASU's certainly taken some strides. They've
Mhm.
already gotten some recruits for 2025 who are starting to look good.
We're at 17 now. 17 commits as of tonight.
There
We
you
lost
go.
one. We were 18, but we lost one today.
This is for 24.
Correct.
Yeah, you're talking about for 24. I mean, I thought that they got some guys for 25 as well. So they're starting to build a foundation. They're starting to get some guys in, some young players in, and we've seen how as many of the young players that have played this year and the impact that they've made. So you can get some guys in here, get them developed. Hopefully 2-3 years down the road, you're competing for a conference title yourself. So at least that's certainly the blueprint and the idea going in. So obviously we'll continue to keep an eye on this. But as we said, next game up, it's you got to move on, and the Devils certainly will this week against the UCLA Bruins, who are having themselves a nice year in their own right, 6-3.
Bowl eligible.
Yep, they are bowl eligible. That's right, 3-3 in the Pac-12. You talk about the UCLA Bruins, you got to talk about Chip Kelly in his 6th season in Westwood. Just crossed over the 500 mark this year after those kind of rough first 3 seasons where the Bruins were 3-9, 4-8, and then 3-4 during the COVID season. Since then, they've gone 8-4, 9-4 their last 2 years.
Right.
So they're definitely trending in the right. They've been trending in the right direction the last couple of years. This is the first year in 5 seasons that it's not Dorian Thompson-Robinson at quarterback for them, but they've moved on, and they've been able to continue to put points on the board, and they've actually done it with their defense. It's actually been their defense that's been the star of the team this year, and they'll be going to the Big Ten in 2024 with USC. They were ranked as high as number 18 at one point this year, but they took a bad loss last week against Arizona in Tucson. They lost 27-10, in which their top 2 quarterbacks, Ethan Garbers and the freshman Dante Moore, were both injured. Now, this offense has been very effective this year with the spread option scheme that they run. They were averaging 29 points a game. And as always with Chip Kelly's teams, they always run the ball well, and this team's no exception. 204 rushing yards per game on average. Now, I mentioned Ethan Garbers, the Washington transfer, who's been their primary starter for much of the year. He looks like he's going to be out with a foot injury. They haven't really officially ruled him out as of yet, but right now it looks like he's going to be out for this game. Dante Moore is also battling with I think they were concussion symptoms, and that's why he was pulled from the game against U of A. He's certainly a possibility to start. He's had a pretty good year for his completion percentage. Hasn't been great this year, but he does have over 1,300 yards, 10 touchdowns. He's had turnover problems, turned the ball over 7 times this year.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
So, for a freshman, that's kind of to be expected, as he's kind of feeling his way out, coming over from a big-time program in Detroit. And he's also, he hasn't been, I thought he was a little bit more of a dual threat than he was, but he hasn't really run the ball that well. It's kind of been mainly focusing on making plays with his arm. But he still gives them a very good chance to win. And if for some reason he can't go, they'll turn to the Kent State transfer, Colin Shalee, who's actually a much better runner than he is a thrower. He's only 3 of 13 this year, passing with 2 interceptions, but he's been outstanding as a runner. They've had packages for him as to use his legs, where he has 21 carries, 247 yards, and 3 touchdowns on the season. So he can certainly come in and give them a boost as well if their top 2 quarterbacks can't go. But if Shalee does end up under center, They could be a one-dimensional game for their offense.
Yep. I yeah, we were in fact, right before we came on tonight, we were looking at all the injury reports out there, and it's kind of it's kind of a, you know, it's not conclusive, but more did practice today.
Yeah, this isn't like the NFL with, you know, and with college,
No.
you know, they don't always keep track of the injuries day to day.
Well, it's actually his HIPAA. Believe it or not, before a kid is 21, even
Right.
after he's 21, his parents can say, "We don't want you to report this because it can screw up his draft. It can affect his draft capability, his draft status." So even the coach, and when the parents say, well, you can always tell when the coaches are guarded because you know a parent has stepped in and said, "No, don't say anything."
Sure, and that makes sense. You know, certainly everybody's entitled to a certain degree of privacy, and even college football players. But
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what happens between, because it's Thursday, as a Thursday night. This is the information that we have to go on. So you know, we don't always get a ton of inside information leading in. I mean, we didn't know about Isaiah Glass not making the trip. We didn't know about DeCarlos Brooks not being able to suit up. We still don't know if DeCarlos Brooks can suit up for this coming week. So we'll see
we know
things
that
go.
Trenton did practice today and yesterday, and he's putting weight on it. He's moving better every day.
All right. Well, so he's probably likely to play, which they're going to need him to, certainly. And then, but we'll see what happens. But you know, even with their third string quarterback, this UCLA offense can still move the ball very effectively. They, like I mentioned, they've been able to run the ball extremely well this year. That's the strength of their team, you know, especially when they had running backs like Zach Charbonnet and Britton Brown and you know, and whatnot. I mean, it's kind of like Oregon back in the day. You know, they were always able to run the ball very, very well. So yeah, and this UCLA team has been no exception with players like Joshua Kelly, among others. So and then, you know, this year they've kind of had a lot of success running the ball with John.
Sir, hold on.
Oh, they've had a lot of success running the ball with TJ Harden and Carson Steele have kind of become their two-headed monster at running back. Steele's kind of been the primary guy, 132 carries, 712 yards, and 6 touchdowns. He's also been a good receiver out of the backfield, with 13 catches, 103 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And TJ Harden has kind of become their complementary back. They're very similar backs, though. They're a little they'll get downhill very, very well. Kind of more run between the tackles types. Harden's a little bit more. He can break it to the outside. He's got a little bit better speed than Steele, but Steele's kind of fits the scheme that they like to run a little better. And you know, so Harden's had a nice year in his own right. 97 carries, 496 yards, and 5 touchdowns as well. And then this team will kind of they'll pass to keep you honest when the opposing defenses kind of come up to attempt to stop the run. They'll throw the ball to Logan Loya and then J. Michael Sturdivant. They've kind of been their 2 best receivers so far this year. Loya is actually their slot receiver, and you know they've always had. That's another thing about this offense. They utilize the slot receiver really well. You know, a couple of years ago with Kyle Phillips, who's now in the NFL. He was, you know, always their leading receiver. You know, they'll throw a lot of short passes for him, kind of use him to look for him on third downs to help move the chains. And it's kind of become the role Logan Loya has taken over. J. Michael Sturdivant, more of a bigger physical receiver on the outside that they'll look for as well. And then another thing about Chip Kelly's offense is they always use the tight end.
Right.
And the 2 guys that they have, Carson Ryan and Maliki Matavau, haven't put up a lot of, you know, some very good individual numbers, but combined, they've had a very good year at the tight end spot. They'll look for these guys a lot in the red zone. They have 5 touchdowns combined between them. So when they do throw in the red zone, the odds are they're going to be looking for
tight ends,
looking for the mismatch problem. So that's UCLA's offense in a nutshell. I mean, they do always have another thing. He'll always use that zone blocking scheme to run the ball extremely well. And I mean, nobody on this offensive line really stands out necessarily. They got a couple seniors in center, Duke Clemens, and guard Josh Carlin. A nice transfer at left guard in Spencer Holstedge. But nobody really like stands out to you, but the numbers still speak for themselves. This group, this offensive line group as a unit, has done an excellent job, getting downhill, running the ball. So that's definitely something that ASU is going to have to be prepared for, especially after giving up 350 yards on the ground a week before against Utah. This like to see ASU's defense bounce back in the rushing game. So UCLA's defense has been extremely strong this year, and I mean, if you look at if you can go back, this is a team.
Right here, 70 yards.
Yeah, 16 points. They're only giving up 16 points a game. They're actually second in the nation behind Penn State in rushing yards per game allowed, and it was just 70. So this defense has been very, very good, and that's something that Chip Kelly hasn't always had with his teams. He's always relied on his offense to kind of carry the load a little bit more, but this defense has definitely stepped it up, been extremely good.
And I'm going to give Chip Kelly a little props here, because when he came into the league, he pretty much revolutionized the spread, right? But
at Oregon, yes, when he was the offensive coordinator under Mike Bellotti.
And within a couple of years, everybody's using the spread, but everybody's using the spread pretty much for, really, they were using it for the pass. He was using the spread for the run.
Yeah.
And the criticism he always took, but one thing I'll tell you about Kelly is that he kept changing his game. He reinvented all the time. It was not, year after year, it wasn't the same. It was not stale. And he's added this.
And one of my favorite things, this I think what's earned him a lot of props, especially among the college football fans, is he always adjusted he was always able to put points on the board because he adjusted his scheme and his attack for the personnel that he had. He never tried to fit a round peg in a square hole. Right. So he, just used what he had and, tailored his offense around his players' strengths. He didn't try to, just try to fit them into his scheme and just see what happened. Like a lot of coaches will do. They have a few schemes that they like that they'll try to fit their players into. No, you got to utilize, be a little more fluid than that, and utilize what you have, and try to use them to the best of their ability, and just make do with what you have. And he has always been able to do that extremely well. In college football anyway. His success in NFL was not as good, but
it was a short-lived experiment. But he did change the game.
Yeah, I mean, college football, he's absolutely changed. He's definitely made it a lot more spread out.
He's never remained static in his approach.
Yes.
You look at a lot of top 10 programs, they don't change. I mean, it's the same setup year to year to year, pretty much. He's
kind of know what to expect, and know what you're going to get. Yeah, that's true. Especially if the coaches stay the same. Like if the coordinators stay the same, you kind of have a good idea of what to expect. Yeah. But he's done a good job. Wherever he's gone, always finding ways to use the talent that he has and putting them in the best position to be successful. And it starts up front, and their defense. If you go back a couple slides, sorry, technical difficulties here. But if you look at their defense, kind of starts up front with their front and middle. Their two linebackers, Darian Mwasow, who looks like a legit pro prospect at linebacker. 51 tackles, 6.5 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, interception, and 3 passes defended. He's just all over the field. He fills out that stat sheet really well. He's a guy you got to know where he is at all times. When the quarterback's at the line pointing out where guys are, you can bet he's pointing where Darius Mwasow is, because that guy he definitely makes plays. And he's got a nice complementary player next to him on the weak side in Kane Madrano. 43 tackles, 6 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, and a forced fumble on the year. He's kind of plays well next to Mwasow. They're definitely a tough tandem to deal with. They get downhill and they make a lot of tackles. So that's those are two guys you got to know where they are at all times. And then their pass rush has been extremely strong. We saw Latu last year, and he's when he pins his ears back and come after you, he's as good as they come in college football. This is the second straight week ASU is going to face a tough pass rusher with, probably probably true freshman Sean Na on the left side. And this is a guy, 11 sacks, Latu, 11 sacks on the year, 16 tackles for loss. He's even got an interception. He's a guy who, just goes out there and makes plays. He's a big time pro prospect. Very well, we all know what how the NFL covets pass rushers. He's a guy that could get taken in the first couple rounds because of his ability to get after the quarterback. And then on the other side, another guy who's probably you're gonna see at the next level, Gabriel Murphy, has come on this year and been that bookend to Latu with 11 tackles for loss and 5 sacks. To his credit, he's another guy who plays the strong side well, can set the edge, does a lot of things well when teams kind of overplay Latu. He's a guy who takes advantage. And then their best corner has been John Humphrey. This is a team that, they as strong as they've been against the run, they've given up some yards through the air this year. I mean, teams have kind of had to throw against them because, UCLA's put up some points, but their defense gives up about 224 passing yards per game. So not terrible, but at the same time, still, I think you would say middle of the pack. And John Humphrey's been their best corner so far this year with 2 interceptions to his credit. And those guys get after it a little bit out there.
So we're probably going to be we're going to be in 12 personnel a lot, you would think, with this D line, right?
I would think so. I would hope so. I'd hope they keep keep a tight end, keep a running back. Keep some players in to give some extra added protection to this pass rush. Yeah, especially if UCLA hasn't really had to blitz a ton this year.
No,
but when they do, you have extra players in to defend, and hopefully the wide receivers can create some separation and make some plays after the catch.
I'm just thinking on the freshman side, on the left tackle side.
Yeah,
you probably want to.
Yeah, you absolutely have to
give him somebody.
I would like to think you keep a tight end in. You use the running back to chip.
Let him chip. Yeah.
Do some things to try to slow this team down because last week they really weren't able to do much of that. Even when they did keep extra guys in, they weren't really able to slow them down. Their screen game was almost non-existent. That's usually how you slow down a pass rush, is screens and draws. They really weren't able to do that last week. So it's just to see how this team goes out and responds. We'll see if they get to Carlos Brooks back. Hopefully that'll help give their offense a boost a little bit. Going up against another tough defense, hopefully this offense can respond a little bit. And our keys to the game this week, presented by Sleep in Heavenly Peace, a great nonprofit that builds beds for families in need. Check out sleepinheavenlypeace.com. And for me, I got to take a page out of your playbook, Big John, and give a couple for the offense this week. I'd like to see them put at least some points on the board after that abysmal showing last week. Move the chains first and foremost. Keep drives alive, maintain possessions, end drives to points. Don't get behind the chains too much. Hopefully, get some third and manageables during the course of the drives, and hopefully they'll be able to keep those drives alive. They're probably going to have to throw the ball quite a bit against this stingy rush defense. But if they get some short passes in there and let the receivers make plays after the catch, hopefully they'll be able to generate some offense. And then we mentioned it in the last segment. Keep TB16 clean. Trenton Bourguet. We know he's not the most durable player, and with the injuries that he suffered, he's not going to be the most mobile either. But they got to find a way to slow down that pass rush. He needs at least 3 seconds to throw the ball, to let the receivers get open. Hopefully, this offensive line can gel a little bit and give him that time. And then, with the success that U of A had against the Bruins last week, maybe follow their blueprint a little bit. I know the ASU's coaches definitely watched that film from Arizona's win last week. They can contain Bruins' rushing attack to a certain extent and get off the field on third down. We talked about it before the show, Big John. Any drive that ends in a kick, usually you're doing something right. And I'd like to see. I don't expect ASU to shut down UCLA's defense by any stretch, but if they can at least contain them, maybe hold them to some field goals, at least give themselves a chance to be competitive in this game.
Yeah, I mean, this is all sound thinking. I mean, it's going to come down to some, the fact that the defense we're playing is very similar in capability and especially up front on the defensive line from what we played last week. So but we've got to find a way. So you have to try to pick your poison here. And I think if the number 2 quarterback is the guy going, you're gonna have to try to stop the run. All 4 that's let him beat you with his arm. But if we can hang on to the ball, if we can stretch any of these drives, stretch any of these drives, and do all the stuff you can do within the rules now to burn clock, I think we have a chance and keep that defense, their defense on the field for long periods of time. You got a shot. And obviously I didn't put anything in about turnovers, but turnovers would be huge. You can create 2 more turnovers than they have. You have a shot. But again, up front, we've got to win the battle. O-line has got to take on this real good defensive line like they did last week and do better than last week. So they got to use last week as an inspiration to do something better and keep Trenton Court. I mean, Trenton going down in the 3rd play is that ought to stick in their craw a little bit.
Yeah, I would hope so.
And just be real gap sound on defense. And I should have put that up with the stopping the run. But be gap sound and stay home. Those are some of the keys for me. But no, it's going to be a great test, and I think a lot of our kids are from California, so they're going back home to play in front of friends and family. This one should meet a little bit more. Going to Utah's, it's never fun, especially the way that how well built that team is. But there's a little there's a little something going on with all the California kids playing back in California in front of their friends and family. There should be a little more pride, a little more effort put out there.
Hey, I after we spoke last night, and I finished up doing the research on this game. I watched the game that I went to back in 21 when they played down there, and their last win against UCLA, and that was great to see. I mean, the team looks so different from then, but that was fun to watch. That was such a great experience, and going into the Rose Bowl. It's the granddaddy of them all. I mean, it's got all that history for a reason, and so hopefully ASU goes out there and like you mentioned, all those California players, they have a good showing in front of all those friends and family. So those are our keys to the game presented by Sleep in Heavenly Peace. And now score prediction time. After that showing last week, neither of us are really giving ASU much of a shot.
Vegas is. We got a 17-point underdog, I think.
Yeah, and ASU's been, other than except for last week, they had been really good about covering the spread.
Yeah, we were the darlings.
Yeah, but we'll see what they do this week. I have them, and I think they'll put up a few more points. I think they'll get down in the red zone a little bit more, kick some field goals. But I just don't know if they're going to have an answer for that rushing attack of UCLA's, and especially if either of the top 2 quarterbacks is able to go. I think you're probably, and I think Dante Moore will end up playing, but I have a UCLA winning 31-16.
Yeah, I'm close. 30. I think I think UCLA will score at least 5 times in this game, and I think I see them as all touchdowns. And we'll put up. I think we will be better than we were last week on offense. I mean, especially if Trenton is playing, we'll have more offense through the air, and there'll be a lot of passes, a lot of quick passes to get the ball out, because that's all they're gonna give us.
Probably, yeah. And you had ASU winning last week too.
Yeah, so. I learned my.
Hopefully you're wrong again.
Well, yeah. Hopefully, I really do. I don't like doing this, but I'm telling you, we both knew the temperament of the team, and we both called Wazoo, and I just thought they would still. I underestimated just how physical Utah was in all three aspects of the game.
that was about as physical as they've been all year.
I know. Yeah.
Especially, I mean, at least on film from what we saw. You know, I mean, if you watch Utah against like Oregon State, they
Oh
didn't
yeah.
really look all that physical.
No,
And,
no, no.
yeah, they had some quarterback injuries,
Hmm.
but you know, they were about as well
They
prepared
they executed. Yeah,
and inspired as we've ever seen them on Saturday. So,
yeah.
and ASU unfortunately was the brunt of that. But hopefully ASU can get a little inspiration going themselves and have a bit of a bounce back week this week. You know, that's the hallmark of a strong team, of a good team, is that they can bounce back from bad losses and have a strong performance the next week. They don't let any kind of hangover carry on week after week. So hopefully we'll see ASU show up in a better way on Saturday. So
Hmm.
that'll do it for us. We appreciate you guys tuning in as always. Tune in on Saturday, 7 o'clock on the Pac-12 Network from Rose Bowl Stadium as ASU will take on UCLA Bruins in Pasadena. So we say good night. Forks up. Go Devils. Ruin the Bruins. Dilly dilly.
Dilly dilly.